My next project then is going to be this Fantrainer design. I'll leave a link down in the description. There's a couple of different versions of this. This is the one that I went with. You can see the specifications here for a 64mm EDF, a 3-cell pack. It doesn't tell me what C, but we've got the COG there and suggested throws, so some good information to get going there. I have a generic no-name 64mm EDF with a suitably anonymous ESC. Here are a couple of photos I took after I'd printed and taped together the plan, and then when I cut out the various pieces, and now we can see them here. Fairly straightforward design. It's got a T-tail there, some fuselage pieces, the main wing, and it shows you a suggested position for a spar, which is a good idea. A fuselage side, which I've already doubled up there. This is just obviously roughly cut out. I'm going to finish that off properly. And then the rear half of the fuselage section, which appears to be the most complicated, at least from the process of cutting, with these tabs obviously going to fit in to the slots there. But some on the top and some on the bottom. So got to be careful there, pay attention to not cut the wrong things out. We've got our central hole here for the EDF fan. That will sit in to there. And that will go on there, something like that. Without further ado then, I'm going to finish shaping these pieces and then we'll see how it goes together. We can see that things are really shaping up now. That's some idea of how it's going to turn out. The front portion, however, I didn't make very clear in the first part of the video. These parts are only stuck together so that I can shape them and that they will be hopefully symmetrical. They're only held together by this spray mount, and that's repositionable, so we can take the paper off and hopefully without too much grief we should be able to separate the two parts here. Like so. So this side is still quite tacky, this side not. Now with those two sections we can use the fuselage parts, and it's not explicitly stated, but I believe these go inside, so that we'll have room for a battery pack of around this sort of size. This is a 1500 3S, and that should fit quite comfortably in there with the rest of the gear. That then is going to be my next challenge, to bend those around with a little bit of heat possibly, or bending over the edge of the table. Not much to say about the rest of it. I've just routed a channel in there for the carbon rod. I guess there's some debate on whether that should go on the top or the bottom. My own thoughts are that it should go on the top. That way, when inevitably it starts to bend, the carbon rod will be in compression. The hole here is only roughly shaped out. The EDF that I have is actually an OD of around about 66, and this was cut for 64, so there's going to be some fettling around there. I don't know if we'll need additional reinforcement here. There is a dotted line here which I believe is supposed to indicate another spar of some kind. My thoughts on that are to go with these tongue depressors or ice cream sticks, cut those to length and pop one on either side, and that should stop that from flexing. Probably would be not a bad idea to put something similar, carbon rod, in the top of the T-tail section there, but we can work that out as we go along, and additionally things like cutting out the ailerons and generally tidying up and smoothing the edges will be the next task. Things have progressed, as you can see, and I've made an executive decision. All the time I've been building, I've been looking at this 64mm EDF and thinking that really does look ridiculously large for this size of model. Indeed, I've flown larger and heavier models on smaller EDFs, this being a 40mm. Splitting the difference then, I've elected to go with an FMS 50mm fan, which we can see in there, as the hole here is cut to 63mm, I think it was. What I've done is to 3D print a spacer there to hold the fan, and you can see there it slips over the existing foam, the 6mm gap that I designed into that, and it's made of lightweight PLA, which has two advantages. One, clearly it's lightweight, but more importantly, there was no way, if that was rigid, that I'd be able to get that in there easily without cutting things about, which I didn't want to do. With it being lightweight PLA, it's quite flexible, so I was able to scrunch that down and get that in there, and it popped back into shape, so I'm quite happy with that. Just to rough things out with the fan in place, I've dropped the 1500 3S pack in there, and I think it should be about there somewhere, with the C of G ½ inch behind the leading edge there. That balances nicely, and I have lots of wiggle room in there to get the other equipment in and to adjust the battery as necessary to finalise the build. As I mentioned, I've cut the popsicle sticks to reinforce the tail there, and stuck the bit on the top there with its own carbon fibre. The elevator is hinged, also both of the ailerons. Just as an aside, what I'm using here for the hinges, and I used on my little EDF conversion, are these transparent pouches that you can get for heat sealing photographs and IDs and such like in, and that's just applied with a normal covering iron. It's proven to hold up very well so far on the niddle, so I'm going to try it with the Fantrainer. That's where we are then at the moment. The next thing I'm going to be doing is installing a servo for the ailerons and the elevator. Thinking about the rest of the electronics, I'm going to have to extend and pass the cable inside for the speed controller. Not sure if I need to cut any holes to cool that. We'll see how that goes. Again, there's plenty of space in here to play around with. I shall be getting on now to do those things. And here she is, all ready to go. I've had a lot of fun doing the final adjustments of things, and we'll take the top off now and show you the insides. Let's disconnect the battery first, obviously. You may have heard there, telemetry lost. I'm monitoring the battery voltage there. What I've done in here then, this is the aileron control, clearly, with the rods going out the side there, stuck above it. Rather a bit of a bodge job there. A little smaller 2-gram servo that's connected via a cable to the elevator. I was having problems finding an inexpensive, I think they're known as Sullivan cables or something like that, and they seem to be ridiculous prices and difficult to get hold of. What I did then was to go onto AliExpress, bought some Bowden cable, 1.5mm, and some PTFE sleeving, and that seems to be doing the job really well. As always, links down in the description to the kit that I'm using. As discussed previously, we've gone for the FMS 50mm 12-bladed fan, which is now glued in place. I also changed the speed controller. Rather than using the really heavy one, I did a thrust test on this, and it was giving me over 300 grams at around 25 amps. I then elected to use a Hack RC drone style speed controller, but that didn't have a BEC. So what I have here is a little 3-amp regulator, which is connected to the main battery and providing 5 volts back to the receiver. Receiver tucked down there is one of my favourite ELRS type receivers. and this is one of the cheapy clone jobbies, simply known as Bay CK, and this is a five channel one, but as I mentioned earlier, it does have battery telemetry built in, and the antenna will just be tucked up under there. Finally then, tucked up the front there is one of my own design 3D printed steerable nose wheel servos, and that's in a little casing there. Simply make a slot in one of the spare arms that I have, and that seems to work really well. Once again, a link to the video where I made that guy will be linked up there somewhere. You can see there the placement of the landing gear, and this is repurposed from an FMS model. I've changed the wheels for slightly smaller ones, and again the steerable nose wheel at the front there. Main landing gear is placed over the spar. Here we can see the recommended range of the CG, so 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch in front of the leading edge, so we're quite a ways behind that, but not too far back. The test there then is you should be able to depress the tail and it return to the nose wheel position without any problem, which it does. It's not putting too much force on the nose wheel, just enough, I feel. We will find out. There we have it then. On the next suitable day we'll get this into the air. I'm not sure for how long. I have a rather checkered history with EDFs in the sort of jet form, hence the reason for going for the Fantrainer. Maiden flight coming soon. No wind to speak of. We're in the most forward CG position.
Oh, nice!
Oh, not nice. Well, short but sweet. Well, I don't know what happened there. It all seemed to be going so well. The debris field looks rather extensive. Yes, I'd say that was fairly terminal. Never mind, we shall rebuild it. Having examined the remains on the bench back in the workshop, it appears that the elevator servo had come adrift. As I mentioned in the video, I wasn't very happy with it anyway, and now I have a chance to redesign it. Miraculously though, the EDF, the fan, survived completely intact. Just needed to blow some dust and grass out of it, and that was all good. So at least the electrics will live on, as indeed will the T-tail section, which seems to have survived. We'll graft that on to a rebuild. New video coming very soon. Thanks for watching.